Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Nick. This is MSFS Flight Plans, and I have got another tutorial for us. I know I've said many times over the years that I don't do a lot of tutorials, and I don't. But on rare occasions, I will, and the reason I'm doing this one is the same one I did for the Joby S4. There is not much out there on YouTube on how to fly this thing, or how to operate it, or how to get the controls mapped over, or anything. I did read the manual first this time, which I did not do for the Joby, and it's about 35 pages long. I will link it in the video description if you want to check it out. And the Joby manual was like 65 pages long, so that was a relief to have something half as long. But it's not as thorough as I would like, nor were any of the YouTube tutorials that I saw. Some of them were pretty well done, but just didn't really cover everything I wanted to know. So I've learned as much as I can by reading the manual, watching all the tutorials I could find, and flying it around, and I'll share it with you guys right now. And the reason why I picked this plane, by the way, our next flight is going to be to the location of, well, let's see, it'll be 2 flights from now, because I'm about to take another one too. The first location we ever went to on this channel, which has been deleted for about a year and a half now. It's a really cool spot, but the narration was so horrible, but we got to fly a plane like this out there. You'll have to stick around to see what that is. So just a quick walk around. This is made by FlightFX, the same guys, again, that made the Joby, and it looks just as good from the outside. All the detailing is really nice. I was able to find some click spots on here. One of them will get the doors open, so if you hit this button right here, you got to get kind of close to do it. That'll open it, but it won't bring you into it, and I couldn't find anything to click on that would bring me in, so we will have to hit Shift-C to get in. I'm just looking to see if it... I don't think there's one that'll do it. This back door will also open if you get closer to it, so you can open that up. You can close them from the inside by grabbing the handle and shutting it, which is what we'll do when we get in there, and there's something on the console that'll shut it as well, so I'll show you that once we get in. And look at how many engines this thing has. 6 in the front, 6 in the back. These back here are stationary. You can see the ones in the front will pivot forward. So if you're really a glutton for punishment and ultimate realism and you feel like sitting around for an hour and a half while it charges, from the outside you can click on this panel or that panel up there underneath the wing. I think that's the one you click on. Will it turn into a hand? You probably got to get super close. There's something up there you can click on, but it's hard to get to, so I would just click on this one. It'll do the same thing. A little charging station will open up out here, hook up the wires, and it'll charge away. So that's it from the outside. Let's climb on back in. I couldn't see any chocks or anything that we have to deal with. Let me just look again real quick, because I was having a problem taxiing, and that might be the issue. I can't see into that one at all, and there don't appear to be any on that one. All right, so let me Shift-C it. We'll climb in and then go from there. Okay, so as far as mapping the controls over, you can see this one looks very similar to the inside of the Joby. We've got our 2 inceptors, left-hand inceptor right here, right-hand inceptor over here. Unlike the Joby, this one does have pedals. I think the only function of these is brakes, and the parking brake lever does work. And I mapped these over to my toe brakes, which I'm using right now. They don't appear to do anything, and I'm not sure if they're doing anything in the sim either, because I could not get this to taxi. I'll tell you about that later. I did not see anyone taxiing it in any of the tutorials, but the taxiing is mentioned in the manual, and it even says how to do it. But I think there's a configuration problem, which may just be me with this over here. So the rest of the mapping is, this one is mapped over to my cyclic or stick right now, if you like flying aircraft. Elevator access, aileron access, very standard issue stuff. The big difference with this one, with the Joby, you would twist this to yaw. So when I move my pedals, this would twist. But you can see now, when I'm moving my pedals, this is going left and right. And it seems like I don't really know exactly what kind of movement that would be mapped to, because once we're in the air, you move this left and right to yaw. So it's going to be a little bit different. You'll figure it out real quick, and you'll start to get the sense of what's going on with it. But that's a little bit different than it was in the Joby as well. So in the air, yawing will be through moving this thing left and right. And this kind of feels like a rudder would probably feel in an actual aircraft when you're flying it around. To steer on the ground, if you can get it to taxi, which I did accidentally, you can use your pedals for that. It'll steer on the ground like that. But again, I don't think the brakes are working, but that might just be me. Okay, so to get it going, let me tell you a couple other things that will be mapped over. Your pitot heat is over here. That works, so you can set that to auto if you want. If you're in colder weather, we certainly are not now, and I'll show you where we are in just a second. And on this one, the only button that you can click in the sim if you feel like doing that is your autopilot engage button over there. I think this has a fully functioning autopilot. I did not try to bring a plan in, though, so I don't know if it's one of the planes that's not installing the flight plans correctly yet. I don't know what word I was looking for there, but it didn't come out. So to get the power on, you will look behind this over here, your left-hand inceptor, click this twice, so it'll go through standby mode and then onto ground mode. 1, 2. Everything will start firing up. You can see it has full autopilot controls over here. I'm not going to give you tutorials on all this stuff because it works just like all the other Garmins do. So we'll click that. Okay, so if you want to shut your doors from the inside, you can go to Sim Actions. And then, let's see, is that the doors button? And that one's the only one that's open, so we'll close that. Cool. And then go back. If you want to plug your charger in from the inside, or if you plugged it in on the outside and you want to unplug it from the inside, you would use this left-hand button here. Let's plug it in for just a second. This is your battery level right here. And if you don't feel like waiting around forever, just start clicking that button, and you can go all the way up to, I think, 32 times the speed. And you can see it's charging over here. And then here is your flight time remaining based on which flight mode you're in right here. So as your battery level goes up, you will see, I think maximum you get around 100, 120 nautical miles maybe, which is a pretty good hike. They are really making these things, and they're going to use them for air taxis, which would probably be pretty important to have. But if you're not going all that far, I wonder how long it takes to charge in real life. I guess you could figure it out if you're going to sit here in the sim. Okay, so we'll unplug this thing now. I don't know what LHI Assist On does, but when I turned it off, I was able to taxi, but I couldn't control my speed. It just shot down there, and I couldn't get it to stop. So I'm just going to leave that on. If I turned it off, I was able to taxi. So the other thing you want to map over, and this thing is what's backwards in the manual. This button right here, if you're clicking in the sim, it doesn't seem to be working intuitively. Maybe it does, but I just, again, don't know what I'm doing. This will allow you to switch between hover mode or incrementally decrease or let's see if I say that right. Increase or decrease your airspeed to a couple of set points. I think the first one is maybe 92 or 96 knots, and then the max speed is 117 knots. And as you click backwards to go back through that, it'll bring you back down to hover mode. I'll show you all that stuff when we get in the air. This was the only thing mentioned in the manual as far as mapping goes. They said map the increase, your speed increase, to your flap increase button, which I did. But that's backwards. Right now, you have to, if you want to increase speed, map it to your flap decrease button. And all that's going to do is switch it over to the next stop. So either 92 or then 117 and back the other direction too. So just remember that's reversed. To go faster, flap decrease. To go slower, flap increase. It's stated backwards in the manual, or maybe it's programmed wrong here in the sim. So just a heads up with that. I didn't map anything else over, but it looks like your toga button, which I think is this one right here, is also mapped to something. We're not going to use that. This is also mapped to something. It's called the power lift. I don't remember seeing anything about that in the manual, and I don't know what it does, so I'm just going to leave that alone. Okay, so let's get her moving. Parking brakes on. I'm just going to go ahead and leave them on because we're going to hover. So the way that this works on the ground, let me kind of show you what's going on here. If you start cycling through your throttle, this is mapped to the throttle, by the way. And you can see it's not like a forward more or backwards more thing. The way it's going to work is just kind of clicking up through the notches. So if I move it and let it go, it'll go forward and then just stop. And that's kind of what's going on. So eventually, these engines will start to cycle through. Well, I got to get it to flight mode. Sorry, we got to click this one more time over here. There we go. And I think the engines go through some sort of startup sequence. So I'm just going to move that up a little bit. There they go. So it goes forward a little bit. It stops. And I don't know if it has something to do with the braking, because again, I don't think the braking is working. Let's just... Okay, so that's on. That's off. They're going to go up, they're going to come back down, and then when I pull the throttle back as if I'm shutting it off, it starts going faster, so something is not working right. So that should be throttle off, and I can taxi and I can steer if I do that, so if I go full forward, I'll start moving on the ground, but it should be my throttle off, because when we're in the air, if we moved it the same way, it would work the opposite way. So if you feel like taxiing and using the reverse of what the throttle should feel like, you will be able to taxi. It just feels really weird on the ground. So I'm going to put that back straight down. Hopefully I'll be able to do it. See, now I'm stuck. I've got my throttle in up position. It's stopped. If I bring it forward like I'm going to hover, watch what it's going to do. I'm just going to take off. So to take off, you just pull back on that right stick there. That'll bring you up to hover mode. And watch this little box right here. This tells you what mode you're in. So right now it's in hover. And you can see we're going forward just a little bit. I forgot to show you guys the map, but you're going to want to check this out. It's called Pagan Island. I'll show you at the end on a little nav map so you can see where we are. It's in the Marianas Islands. And really, really cool as you're about to see. The code for it is Tango Tango 01. Alright, so this is not a straight up and down hover. What I'm going to do now is just click in... I'm going to click back on that throttle mode to see if it'll just go to a straight up stationary hover. See, it says hover decel now. And now it's in a hover hold. Okay, so if I don't touch the throttle and just click that button, all the sticks are neutral. It's just holding perfectly still. And just like that Joby, I've got, this is the live weather, I got a 10 knot crosswind, so it is unbelievably stable, which is really, really cool. And as you're maneuvering, it'll also control itself very well to keep it within a safety envelope. So again, to come up, pull back on that right stick, and we're kind of high so you can't tell how much we're coming up, but you can see we're coming up at 850 feet a minute. If we wanted to descend all the way back to the ground, we would push that right stick full forward, the right inceptor, and I think the max descent speed is around 650, maybe 700 feet per minute. So now I'm not going to touch the throttle. All I'm going to do is click the flap decrease button, which will increase your throttle. Again, that's backwards in the manual. Just remember that. One time, and you can see my airspeed target jump to 96. So the engines will come forward, we'll start accelerating. It says hover, accelerate. Eventually it will go into full flight mode. And this one feels a lot more like maybe a helicopter than the Joby did. The Joby felt more like an airplane when we were flying it. This one with the pedals and the stick combo feels a little bit more like a helicopter. Look at this island. So as we turn, you can see it's targeting 96 there, but watch what's going to happen if we turn. It'll automatically slow itself down a bit. Just to keep it within... No, it's going to try to hold it there. So if you, before you hit the target, if you do any maneuvering, it'll kind of slow itself down until you get flat again, then it'll hit the target. So I'm going to click our switch forward one more time, which again would be flap decrease. And you can see it jump to 117. It should accelerate us up to that point. And man, my butt kicker is shaking like crazy. It's awesome. So while we're circling the island here, I'll tell you a little bit about it. And let's hop outside the thing real quick. I want to show you something. Look at the back rotors. I think once you're in regular flight mode, they're just free-floating, because watch if we maneuver. It's almost like they catch some vortices or something and start spinning themselves around. But there must be some kind of braking on them, because they're not just spinning like crazy like you think they probably would. And it looks like they have another little bug there with the rotor speed, because you can see the two right rotors, the two right propellers there. I guess if they're forward, you call them propellers, right? Are at like full bore, while the others are not. I feel so bad for these developers. I'm not going to blame them for anything. I've heard a lot of those guys are really struggling to make their time and effort work like it should, working with Microsoft and Asobo. Okay, so you can see we're still targeting 117. I haven't touched the throttle, but it did slow itself down a bit as we were maneuvering, so let's just see if we go back to straight flight. Yep, it's picking up the speed again. Very cool. So we'll circle around, dive it down so you can watch it hold that airspeed again, which is really, really neat. This weather is just perfect. This is exactly what I figured it would look like out here. And this, again, this is the live weather. And we're still at 10 knots. We got a little bit of a crosswind. Very stable. I'm not touching any of the inputs at all right now. And now it's not. It looks like it's trying to get up to 117. Very slowly creeping up there. So this is Pagan Island, is what it's called. And they say people have been living out here since a couple centuries BC. But the first Europeans to arrive out here were, again, the Spanish. It was the first location of the very first castaway during the age of exploration from the Pacific. It was a guy named Gonzalo de Vigo who went AWOL from the famous Magellan expedition in 1521. And then the notoriously unwelcomed Spanish missionaries arrived in the late 1600s and hauled all the natives off to Saipan and Guam. Those guys were allowed to return about 100 years later to find the whole island had become coconut plantations. And if you have the map enhancement, by the way, the Google Map and Mapbox, which you don't have Mapbox if you're using the Pro, looks way better than the default and the latest Bing map. Both of them, there's a volcano you're going to see in a minute. It's like steaming and erupting and covering the top of the other cone. I think this is the default setting because it's kind of blurry, but for just a second it tried to switch maps on me, and it looked a lot more detailed, so just a heads up with that. But it looks cool, even as default. A little bit rounded off, but it's neat looking. And then the Japanese came out here around the turn of the 20th century at the start of it, and they were growing some more coconuts and some cotton and some sweet potatoes. During World War II, they put a little garrison out here, I think a little military Navy base. But then the Allies cut them off, and almost everybody starved to death. And then after World War II, the Allies took it over, and they made a little community out here. I think they had about 400 people, a hospital, a school, a little church. And then this big volcano you're about to see started erupting in 1981 and didn't stop for 4 years, so they had to move everyone off and have not let anyone come back yet. I guess it's still sputtering a little bit. So as we come back around, let me dip the nose down so you can see this thing. So we're 117, 118, and it's going to keep slowing itself down automatically. I'm not touching that throttle. I haven't even touched it at all. I've just used that switch. So if we want to use... I'm going to click back one time to get it to 96. I'm going to have to level her out a little bit. And much like the Joby, if you want to do a hold, it's coming down to 96, but just move the throttle. And see, it just shifted to speed hold, so it'll hold it right there. And from there, if you want to go a little bit faster, just tweak your throttle a little bit. It'll pick it up, so it's at 105. Tweak it again. 104, is it going to go up some? 105, let's go way up. It's in speed hold mode, so I'm going to click forward one more time to accelerate. I'm still trying to figure this out, guys. Again, it's just not explained well in the manual, and none of the tutorials talked about it. So it's going to target 117 again. Alright. So, as we're coming back in, we won't get real close to that volcano because, again, it doesn't look all that great. That's about as good as it's going to get. We're going to land in that volcano field there, that lava flow field in front of it, which I guess destroyed all the buildings. I didn't see any buildings out here. But if it erupted for 4 years, you'd think it probably pretty much wiped out everything. So let me get low because, again, it won't descend real fast. The top descent speed is around 650. And then we'll plop her down over there, and then I'll show you where we are on a little nav map because you might want to check this out. We're a pretty good distance from all the other islands, so you're probably not going to do much island hopping unless you got a lot of time on your hands. But this is pretty neat. Most of these don't have real great satellite coverage. The coverage is really good. You'll see the image, at least on a little nav map, which again is map box. Looks fantastic. Bing, not great. Google, flawless. A lot of these islands don't have real good coverage, so I'm guessing it was just the terrain elevation data that wasn't good because you can see that's really rounded off. It is very sharp and rugged, rigid, and volcanic looking in real life. So we're going to come over this first ridge here, and then I'm going to drop the throttle down. I'm going to start hitting the decel button now. So I drop the throttle, and I'm going to hit decel, so it should target 96. It is. It's targeting 96. And then when we get there, over that ridge, I'm going to hit decel again, and it should bring us down to hover mode, after which we can just move that right stick forward and put her down nice and gently. And once you're in hover mode, I'm pretty sure it's impossible to crash it, no matter how hard you put it down. Once you're about 10 feet off the ground, it'll go into like a little cushion, really, really slow descent mode. These are neat planes, guys. I gotta tell you, it's one of those things that you always click past them and go, well, maybe I'll hop in there someday. But they're fun. They're so different. Very different. And I'm sure once they get all the bugs worked out and you can taxi and all the levers are working the right direction. And I'd be very interested to know if you can load up a legit flight plan. Alright, so I went to speed decel mode. It's coming down real quick now. It's kind of in the sun now. We're under 80 knots. And once it gets under 70, it should automatically go into hover mode. There we go. The engines are coming up. And then if I click one more time, it should go into a hold mode. I think we're about to find out. Will it do it automatically? It's still in hover decel, so one more time down. Well, we don't appear to be moving very much. Oh, it looks like the map's trying to switch over to the Google one now. Well, you can see how much more detailed the Google would be. I don't know why it's doing the weird transition. I restarted the sim and everything. Okay, so now it's in hover hold mode, so now we can just push that right stick straight down. And, yep, 700 feet a minute on the descent, I think, is where it's going to top out. Whoa, 750, there we go. We're screaming now. 500 feet. And then once we stop, we'll shut it down, and then I'll show you a little nav map real quick in case you want to check this place out. So that's everything I know, guys. That's as much as I could glean from it. If you have figured out more than I have, drop us a line in the comments. Of course, I want to learn as much about it as I possibly can, but after all the tutorials and reading the manual, that's as far as I got. Now watch this. It's not going to slam down to the ground. Coming down 300 feet a minute, 250. Got our particle effects. Awesome. And sets it right down and stops. Very cool. Love it. All right, let's look at a little nav map real quick, so you can see where we are if you want to check it out. And by the way, guys, our voting is open right now for the quarterly flight plan competition. Go to our YouTube channel and check out the community page. We got 4 flights uploaded recommended by members. The winner gets a $75 gift card to the sim vendor of their choice, which is awesome. Right now, I think the Colorado Canyons has taken a pretty wide lead. Okay, so let's get back to this real quick. So here's the Mariana Islands, and this one is way up on the north, and it's the farthest north airport. I was just looking around on the world map in the sim. That's how I found it. And then Guam is right down there, which just looks okay. I was going to take a flight over there. Didn't look really spectacular, and the performance wasn't great. But look at how clear this is. The Google Map's even better than this. So once it depixelates, you can see this is a very good image. In the Bing map, you can't even see the top of this. There's so much smoke and steam coming out of this, you can't see anything. So you got some craters down here. I mean, it's just pockmarked with craters. And I don't see any remnants of any structures anywhere, or coconut groves for that matter. Look at that. Must have just wiped out everything. That one appears to be inactive. I don't see any recent looking lava flows there. So that's it. And the code for it again is Tango Tango 01. They got a grass strip that's about 2,000 feet long. They've even named some of the beaches. So check it out, guys. Have fun flying this thing. We will be taking it on our flight to our super secret, and I mean that quite intentionally, not to give away too much of it, location after this. Have some fun. Later.